Everyone treats summer like it owes you happiness. Long days, pool parties, your best life on a loop. So what does it mean when you feel worse? The summer blues are real. It's why summer is one of the busiest stretches of the year for people starting therapy. Therapy is not only for when you're in crisis. Grow therapy is for all the moments when you decide you want more. More support, more clarity, more tools. Mental health isn't a destination you reach. It's something you build, and Grow makes that easier. Grow connects you with thousands of high-quality licensed therapists across the U.S., offering both virtual and in-person sessions, nights and weekends. You can search by what matters, like insurance, specialty, identity, or availability, and get started in as little as 2 days. There are no subscriptions, no long-term commitments. You just pay per session. Grow helps you find therapy on your time. The therapist you want takes your insurance on Grow. Grow accepts over 125 insurance plans. Sessions average $21 with insurance, and some pay as little as $0 depending on their plan. Visit growtherapy.com/book now today to get started. That's growtherapy.com/book now. growtherapy.com/book now. Availability and coverage vary by state and insurance plan.
Oh yeah, look at my life. Hey now, hey now, yeah.
Hey now.
Oh yeah, look at my life out here on the road. Oh yeah, look at my life. Hey now, yeah. Oh yeah, look at my life out here on the road.
Hey now. Hi, friends. Welcome to another special episode of Scott Fox After 9. The pod was supposed to be on vacation until September. However, there's just too much going on right now. The Prime Minister says we are in a trade war with America, and he's getting ready to launch dollar for dollar matching tariffs against the American tariffs. Well, that's going to cost Canadians a heck of a lot of money, my friends, and I'm worried because I know the middle class is barely hanging on right now. I think knowledge is power. And I also think that we have a very biased media in this country. So what I'm trying to do for you here on this pod, and this is my goal every day, is to give you much more context and much more clarity on the big issues that we're facing. And the biggest issue we've faced in a long time is this trade war with America, because we're going into a big fight here. Their economy is 10 times bigger than ours. And in all likelihood, reason says that they're probably not going to feel it as much as we feel it. We've got politicians that are committing Canadians to war, economic war. But those politicians are very well paid and they're very well off. It's the Canadian middle class that's going to feel this trade war. I feel like getting a deal done should have been job one. They should have found a way to make it work, but they couldn't. Negotiations have been called off. No new talks are planned right now. You heard the Prime Minister's side in the episode that I released less than 24 hours ago. Episode 140, Prime Minister Carney declares a trade war. Go back and listen to that one if you want to hear our Prime Minister announcing why he called off trade talks, talking a little bit about what the issue was, although not actually saying which specific issue was just too much for Canada to accept. Which issue was so bad that we would rather have 50% tariffs than try and confront that issue. The Prime Minister still hasn't done that. He hasn't recalled the House as of yet, and he still has not said what the biggest issue was that made Canada walk away. Well, you've heard from the Prime Minister, and if you haven't, I encourage you to listen to that episode. It's about an hour long. You hear the Prime Minister's unedited remarks. In this episode, it'll be shorter, but you should hear the American side of things. You're going to hear from the U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer. First off, before I play for you his latest comments since Canada walked away from the table, I want to take you back to late last week. It looked like we had a deal. The Prime Minister was congratulating people on both sides. Good job negotiating a deal. But then he went to meet with the premiers and asked them about putting booze back on the shelves and things like that. And all of a sudden, everything changed. I maintain the premiers don't want to make a deal with Donald Trump because it's very good for them politically to not have a deal with Donald Trump. Politically, they've got somebody to fight against, and it takes the pressure off of them. They don't have to answer questions about education and healthcare, crime, the mental health crisis, and so on and so forth. As long as they can keep standing up to Donald Trump, they think everybody's going to rally behind them. I don't think that we should do that. I don't think that we should just blindly accept that they are incapable of doing the job that we elected them to do and just give them carte blanche to spend whatever they want to spend to try and fight Donald Trump. I would much rather work out a deal that's good for Canada. So we've walked away from the table. You're going to hear from the U.S. Trade Representative on the latest in just a sec. First off, late last week, when it looked like this was going to be a deal, this is what the Trade Representative Jamieson Greer had to say.
We're very happy with where we ended up. We worked together across agencies, the American government, the Secretary of Commerce, Secretary of Treasury, myself, the Chief of Staff with the President, who had a number of phone calls with the Prime Minister. We're looking at documentation at this point. I have responsibilities to brief Congress on what documents might look like, speaking with American stakeholders, businesses, unions, etc. We feel confident that we've reached an agreement that will not only continue to protect American workers, American jobs, American supply chains, but really strengthen the North American economy and create a situation where North America will continue to be an energy powerhouse, a manufacturing powerhouse, and align on important things like economic security and digital security. So while we certainly, I think, have eliminated some of the irritants that we've had over the past year, we also are taking a strong foot forward on these steps.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Merci, Jamieson.
Bonne journée.
Merci, à bientôt.
Monsieur Leblanc, avez-vous faire des concessions sur la gestion de l'offre? Est-ce que, par exemple, les quotas seront revus?
I am very confident in these discussions, and as we finalize the final text, as Ambassador Greer said, the Prime Minister was very clear. We needed to protect supply management. We needed to ensure that the supply management regime remained entirely intact, and I'm confident that that's the case.
Okay, that was Dominic LeBlanc speaking after Jamieson Greer. You just heard both sides late last week sending a strong message that they had worked out a deal that worked for them, a deal that worked for us. But then Mark Carney blew it up at the last minute. He said the Americans wanted too much. He said they changed the terms of the deal at the last minute. Well, we still don't know that, and we still don't know which issue was so bad that we would rather have 50% tariffs and a trade war and an estimated 100,000 lost Canadian jobs than accept what they had on the table. I think we should know exactly what the Americans wanted. What was it that made Canada walk away? I'm not prepared to just accept Mark Carney's word for it because Mark Carney doesn't have a very good track record. We know he misled Canadians about the Gordie Howe Bridge deal. We know he did that. Do we just accept that he's telling us the truth this time? Or do we want a little verification? Do we at least want a little bit more information? I think we need more information. I really do. But you heard from the Prime Minister in the last episode. This one is about the U.S. Trade Representative. Here is Jamieson Greer speaking this weekend on Fox News.
It's hard to say. We don't have new talks planned with the Canadians. We're moving forward with measures that respond to Canadian retaliation. Remember, as President Trump has introduced a trade policy to reshore American production and protect American jobs, two countries have retaliated against the United States, the People's Republic of China and Canada.
And Canada does a lot of business with China.
They do, and they continue to retaliate, and after a year of that retaliation, we've said enough, and so we've taken countermeasures. Our interest is in protecting American workers and protecting American supply chains. We've been offering to bring the Canadians along on that path, really to cut the tariffs on them, on steel, on tariff autos, even lumber, things that are sensitive for them, and they've always had the best deal, and they still would have an even better deal, but they didn't want that.
That is U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer saying that Canada had the best deal. And we know that that's true. Prime Minister Carney has been saying that for a year. Canada has the best deal with America. He said they offered a better deal, but Canada said no. I'm told now the U.S. offered to slash tariffs on everything from auto to softwood lumber and more. They wanted more access to our dairy market, and they wanted to get rid of a few of the trade irritants, things like digital services taxes. They also wanted to tackle some of the regulations that their streaming giants face in the Canadian market. And I'm told that the Americans also wanted to tackle the issue, and it's a trade irritant, if nothing else, about having to print labels in French. Apparently, Canada said, absolutely no way, we can't do that. I mean, there's a compromise there. If the U.S. thinks it's unfair that their businesses have to print labels in English and French, and follow all of Quebec's guidelines, okay, there's a way around that. If they don't want to do it and we insist they do, then let's just appoint an importer and make them responsible for it. Tack on, I don't know, what are we talking about here? Barbecue sauce? All right, so add $1 a bottle. If somebody third party is going to slap the French label on, they'll do that here. It'll create some jobs and everybody's happy. Why couldn't we find a way to make that work if that truly was the issue? Or we again have to ask the question, is it possible that our political leaders with by-elections a week away, is it possible they didn't want a deal? Is it possible they never wanted a deal? We had a deal last November. We blew it up. We had a deal this time. You heard Jamieson Greer and Dominic LeBlanc basically say we had a deal, just working out some last minute details, but we got a deal and we're happy with it. And then we blew it up again. Is it possible we don't want a deal? You know, the prime minister suggested in his remarks from the last podcast that our sovereignty was being threatened and our ability to do other trade deals was at threat. Well, where that comes from is very, very simple. There's some countries who would like to deal with Canada and use Canada as a backdoor way to get their products into America and avoid tariffs. The Americans apparently didn't want that practice to continue. Every country who wants to sell into America needs to play by American rules. And the rules are, for importing, there's going to be tariffs. Can't use Canada as a backdoor. Apparently, the prime minister interprets that as restricting our ability to do other deals. Well, you can feel however you want about that, but I kind of understand why the U.S. would be upset about that. You can't go through Canada to get free access to the U.S. It's just not something that's feasible.
Okay, I want to talk to you about this last topic because it's one that's very dear to my heart. I have been talking for a long time here on this network about the human rights abuses overseas, slave labor, sweatshops, and this administration, finally, someone is doing something about this. I want you to talk about what you are doing through tariffs to bring, to really crack down on slave labor overseas and make sure American workers aren't competing with slave labor, which is great for American workers, but also a lot of these slave labor are children.
That's right. So the Republican Party's always been the party of freedom since Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves. And so President Trump, since his first term and now, his trade policies have also prevented the import of goods into the United States made with slave labor or forced labor overseas. We have really strong laws in America that do that. A lot of people are surprised to find out that other countries don't have these laws. They don't have these laws. And so President Trump has said everyone has to have these laws to prohibit the import of goods with forced labor. Because if you don't, that's unfair trade. I shouldn't have to compete with sweatshops. Union workers, workers in auto factories who make the cars here, they shouldn't have to compete with that. And so we've said we'll have some tariff on you until you change your rules.
It's unfair and it's also immoral. And so kudos to your administration and to your work for raising the bar for all labor. We should not have slave labor and children should not be working. Thank you. That's rare. Boy, it's loud over here. You're seeing these cars right behind us.
That was a clip on Fox News. There was a race of some sort happening in Washington. I don't really pay too much attention to the things that they're doing down there when it comes to recreational activities. But yeah, they had a race and those were loud cars that were going by. Slave labor is another issue. Yeah, that's something that Donald Trump brought up. New tariffs were announced about 60 days ago by the president because he doesn't want products being imported that were made with slave labor. You can make products a heck of a lot cheaper if you pay your staff a lot less. The president said, no, we're not doing that anymore. Canada was one of the countries singled out for importing products that are made with slave labor. And one of the issues here is if we import those products to Canada and then resell them into the U.S. market, that again is a backdoor way of gaining access to America and trying to circumvent the Trump tariffs. I don't think anybody would disagree that tariffing products that get imported even to Canada that are made with slave labor are fair. I don't think any of us should accept that. We should all demand good working conditions and fair wages for workers. If other countries are able to make things real cheap because they're paying people pennies on the dollar compared to what we pay in North America, that's not right. And our workers shouldn't have to compete with that. Just keep that in mind. You've now heard the American perspective. They seem very nonchalant. They're moving on. They say they're going to start negotiating other trade deals with other countries. How long does Canada have to wait now to get back at the negotiating table? Is there still a window for us to work out a deal between now and the Tuesday after Labor Day when Canada's counter tariffs are going to kick in? I certainly hope so, my friends. Listen, I hope you can keep checking into the pod all this week. If you haven't already, hit subscribe. Hit subscribe so that you get notified when new episodes come out. And there are lots more coming. As I record, Ontario Premier Doug Ford is preparing to make some remarks in Hamilton, Ontario. Hamilton, Steel Town. How do you think they're feeling in Steel Town today? They've got to be worried. The government is preparing to spend truckloads of Canadian dollars to prop up and subsidize private businesses because of this tariff war. My question is, have we really exhausted all options when it comes to working out a deal? Whatever it was that we agreed on last week that got changed at the last minute, can we find a way to get back there and put some stability in the Canadian market? This is still unfolding, my friends. Tomorrow, you'll hear from Ontario Premier Doug Ford. I've still got an episode coming out that involves all of the premiers, or most of them anyway. You'll hear from Eby, Smith, Canoe, Ford, and maybe Houston. I think those are the big ones that everybody wants to hear from, but you're going to hear from the premiers. Most of them are in a fighting mood. Alberta's premier, Danielle Smith, she's a lot more measured in her response. She doesn't necessarily think matching tariffs dollar for dollar is a smart decision. And frankly, I think that she might be onto something there. There's a lot of people who feel that's going to be way too much pain on Canadians and Canadian businesses. If we're going to fight, we got to find a different way to fight. It's unfolding as we speak in real time, and I promise I will keep you up to date right here on Scott Fox After 9. Friends, have a great day. I'll catch you back here maybe later today. It might be tomorrow, definitely tomorrow at the latest, but there's going to be more episodes coming. Hit subscribe, and I will catch you right back here soon for another episode.
Oh yeah, look at my life, hey now, yeah. Oh yeah, look at my life out here on the road. Oh yeah, look at my life, hey now, yeah. Oh yeah, look at my life out here on the road.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
Some people use ChatGPT to answer questions. Others use it to get real work done. With ChatGPT Work, you bring the goal, plus real inputs like briefs, notes, files, feedback, data, and project plans. It can help turn them into an analysis, tracker, deck outline, prototype, or workflow you can review and keep shaping. You stay in control, giving direction and choosing the final output. Put ChatGPT to work on your most ambitious ideas and projects. Get started at ChatGPT.com by selecting Work Mode. Available on Plus and Pro plans.